13, Alva. Although I grew up in Stockholm until a certain age and moved back 15 years ago, I have lived most of my life in the countryside. I've spent a lifetime biking through rye fields and forest groves, hillsides and small fishing harbors with deep spruce forest ridges against the sky. Now I venture out to one of the Stockholm region's many forest areas and walk around under oak and beech trees, make my way down to the water where small waves wash over the stones and look out to the other side, because there I can see the other life, the one I live beyond Stockholm, the beautiful and silent hills, fields, lonely castles, and red barns. It blazed with colors in October, like a fairy tale, like a song, come home, come home. Now the frost is crackling under my boots. My apartment is full of patches. I have squares of memories and worlds in a row. I like the feeling that two worlds can hang next to each other in the form of two paintings or two reborn dolls. My life is a patchwork of different houses, situations, and altars. My body is checkered and striped with new tattoos of old stories covering faded scars. You carry all your ages with you. You carry all your worlds too. When I was 13, I lived with my aunt for a while. The elementary school days that had flashed by had faded, and now it was rows of metal lockers and hormones. She's changed, I was told again. Yes, I was like new, and had an empty, painful feeling of not having been included, that someone else was living my life for me. This someone felt like an intruder, a creep. I firmly pushed her away. In this moment, I was a half-grown creature, a sad teenager trying to get a grip on life. I read lots of books. I wandered the countryside or rode my bike by myself. This was after Mom and Dad divorced. I was acting strangely, and no one knew what to do with me. And I didn't want to live with Dad, but I couldn't stand Mom. So I was placed with my aunt, who didn't know how to deal with Mom and Dad, and took it out on me. I started school. In every new class, there were the good girls, the ones who lived in their villas or townhouses with their parents and siblings, homes that were colorful and warm. Good-natured and curious, they had taken me in, and I wish I could have stayed. I miss them. But I only briefly tasted their friendship, their home environment, and after-school activities. Football, drawing, dancing. Then I returned to solitude. So much had happened in the last year, and now I was carrying anxiety. Earlier, the anxiety had come as a pain in my chest, a cramp in my heart. Now it was in my skin and all of my organs, and I felt sticky and heavy. As it expanded, I couldn't stand it anymore and disappeared into the fog, the hall of mirrors, the clouds. I needed help, someone to help me deal with my body. I felt insecure in every way about my body. I dressed in men's shirts and skipped school, gymnastics so frequently that the school gave me a pass. I had always fallen in love with the nice shopkeeper, with my neighbor Jossan, and with my friend's big sister. Now I was constantly falling in love with my female teachers, but I didn't understand what I was feeling. Anyway, I couldn't open my mouth to say anything without blushing furiously, having heart palpitations for fear of the teachers asking me something, and refusing to go to school if it was a question of standing up in front of the class. I continued to pick the seat next to me on the bus for Elsa. I searched every face for what looked like mine, the other half. When things were quiet for a while, I was wandering around in nature by myself, and I imagined that Elsa was there with me. She was close to me, but she was a dream, a favorite song, her death an unspeakable mystery. Nobody talked to me about Elsa, certainly not Mum and Dad, nor Astor, who seemed to be busy with his own inner struggles. I remember sitting in a therapy room at a children's hospital with two family therapists. Dad declared that he had always been a happy and very successful person. Mom was flirting with the therapist. I was lost in the sky outside the window. The factory chimney was the cloud maker, and I followed the smoke up to the sky. After a few months with my aunt, I moved back to Mom. She was busy with her new boyfriend, and we lived in his old house in the countryside. I liked the countryside. You could be whatever you were. It was free. Kids with home-knitted sweaters invited me to come to the farm. There were cows and horses to look after, teen magazines to browse through, and mild demands on life. The countryside opened its arms as I continued to choose my lonely paths. I lived from day to day with no thought of what had been or what might be. I couldn't be bothered with school. Instead of getting on the bus that snaked across the countryside every morning and afternoon between the scattered farms towards the town where the school was located, I trudged off in my own direction. I got muddy up to my knees as I crossed the fields. Then I started to get up at dawn to go out on my bike. It was quiet until the first birds started chirping and the light rose above the shadows and colored the sky purple, pink, and yellow. I also traveled to the beech forest when the leaves began to change on the trees. I wanted to dive into leaves, climb trees, and sleep on moss, to become one with the forest. Instead, I pulled out some old paints and the paper along with the egg brush I had found in the kitchen drawer. I didn't have any water for the paint, so I spat on them and started rubbing streaks of gold over the paper. It was just a blur, but it was very much in keeping with my world. When Dad came to pick me up, I had no choice but to go with him. He came on his truck to take me on a trip. He said he loved me and wanted to spend time with me. I remember how the road started to run away from under my high seat next to Dad. The huge engine sputtered. The mist swept in. The next time I woke up, it was in my room at my mom's house. I felt slightly dazed, as if I had some kind of hangover. In 8th grade, I stopped sleeping. After my mom and boyfriend went to bed, I sat and watched Alice in Wonderland, Disney's pastel version. Everything was what it wasn't in Alice in Wonderland. You shrank one moment and grew into a giant the next. Alice sang sadly about how she was guiding herself in the wrong direction. After watching the movie night after night, I would listen to John Denver in my room and watch the golden leaves stand out against the darkness around the street light. If only I could find my way home again. I woke up out of the fog on a sidewalk with a bag of baguettes, one in my hand, chewing it. Then I looked around and wondered why I was here in Enköping, feeling that everything was wrong. The dissociations were too difficult. I was going to find some beautiful grove to die in. I had razor blades. I said a silent goodbye, then wandered away. I saw from above how I buried the razor blades under a stone. Late in the evening, I came wandering back home. I had hypothermia, although I had not felt cold, and my teacher, who was at home with Mom when I arrived, wrapped me in blankets. Some people saw you wandering around on the moor, she told me, How are you? There was always so much I could never explain. 14. Bo. Where are we going? Naomi asks. They don't have much with them, just what their backpacks hold, things they stuffed in hastily after Dad told them to get ready to leave. We're going north, says Dad. Why? Asks Eva in the front seat, leaning on the car's dashboard. It's summer vacation, right? We're going on vacation, Dad replies. A trip, Bettina shouts. Why isn't Mom going? Eva asks, but gets no answer. We go. We stop at a ditch and change places. Miriam and Judith have huts on the floor of the car. Naomi and Adina sit with notebooks, draw, ride on each other's arms, play tag, hold their breath. Lisa turns around from time to flash stern looks. We look out at passing communities and ride through groves, then along long corridors of spruce trees. As we pass the shimmering lake in the forest, Adina wants to swim. Not now, Dad says. Forests are getting deeper and darker. Communities are getting smaller and sparser. Let's play the whisper game. What should we do on our vacation? Esther finally whispers in my ear. Next time she whispers, stay in a hotel, and so on. Miriam sniffles because she forgot her baby doll and Judith pats her on the shoulder. Did you travel with your parents when you were little, Dad? Lisa asks. Sure, of course we did. We had the best vacations, Dad replies, and Lisa turns around in the passenger seat as if to say with her eyes, there you go, nothing strange, nothing to be afraid of. After driving all day, with the tires buzzing on the asphalt, the engine humming with vibrations in the car floor, we still haven't arrived, but we are all terribly hungry. Dad too, so we stop outside a gas station with a restaurant. We have never been to a restaurant. The lady behind the counter looks at us as we enter. What a big family. Are you siblings? Yes, I can see that you are, she smiles. Let's have 10 hamburgers, says Dad. Fries? Drinks too? Yes, please, and 10 Coke, says Dad. Put those tables together if you like, says the lady. So we sit at the tables. Eva looks curiously into her lap. Lisa lets her eyes wander restlessly, and they swing their legs. I'm a grown-up lady, says Miriam happily. I'm a grown-up lady too, smiles Judith. Thanks for this, Dad. Adina is Dad's favorite and gets to be downstairs with Dad in his workshop sometimes, helping with the minibus or sitting on the steps while Dad drinks the beer. So they gobble up the food while I look at the bread, at the ketchup, let my tongue gently rest on the bread until Esther cuts up small pieces of hamburger and puts them between my lips. Was it good? Says the lady and smiles at us, a little puzzled. Now we go on in the minibus. It is getting darker. We have been driving all day. The tires continue to rhythmically beat, and the wind whispers over the car windows. Eva turns around and rests her cheek on the seat. Then Judith passes out on the floor of the car. I think the world is big. The Earth's crust is like a fairy tale, and some children build ladders and want to climb up to the sky so they can see everything. And the stars tell fairy tales to such children. Sometimes they fall, sometimes not. But the dark embrace of the earth surrounds them with trees, forests, and meadows. Rest assured, little child, tomorrow everything will be new and different. The sky is white when the car stops, but it is still late night or early morning. We have stopped in the fog at the end of the dirt road up on a hill. The scent of a lake reaches us between the tree trunks. In the distance, the forest grows wild in a circle around the grassy hill where the cottage stands. We are cold, dazed, tired. What are we doing here? Dad finds a pair of keys under the wooden staircase and unlocks the door. We enter a hallway that smells of old wood and dampness. There are rag rugs on the floor. Go upstairs and lie down. There are beds up there, says Dad. We are half asleep as we stumble up the stairs in a narrow stairwell. There are 3 rooms up there. Lisa, Judith whines. So Lisa picks her up in her arms. There are 2 beds in one room. I'm there with 2 sisters who can't take any more tension, and they fall asleep soon, and I fall asleep too, after saying hello to the sky, which is gently caressing the roof of the house. This is the Wilson sisters. We are here now. We wake up to warmth and sunlight shining in through the upstairs window panes. What is this place? Naomi, Miriam, and Ada must discover it all. We are far away. We are free. The rooms are small. Together there are 4 beds and a double bed, chest of drawers, a table, and a chair. Everything is old-fashioned and dilapidated, but beautiful. Flies have died in the window frames. In the stairwell hangs a rope that you can swing or hold on to when going down narrow, steep steps. Downstairs, light streams into paths full of dancing dust motes. There is a room with a fireplace and some awkward furniture, including a new armchair and a sofa bench. In the kitchen, we find Eva and Esther sitting at a rickety kitchen table. In the window are some withered potted plants. Dad has left, says Esther. Yes, he wrote a letter. Eva holds out a piece of paper, which Ada takes and reads. She then passes it around. What does it say? Whines Judith. Judith, Dad has gone to take care of everything. But where are we? We look at Eva, then at the kitchen doors, the sink. Our wandering glances bounces on and off each other. "15. Alva. Up in my room, I continued to work with the paints. I painted a house, my house, where all the Alvas could grow up in peace and quiet. I returned to the photo albums and cut out photographs of myself at different ages and stuck them on the board. There were the twins, and the 4-year-old, the 5-year-old, the 6-year-old, yes, all the ages I had been so far. They were safe there in the house. Who are you? Asked the caterpillar, Alice in Wonderland. I flipped through the photo albums and again went through each box of photographs. Are you looking for evidence? Mom asked. What was I looking for? Well, it was the broken link I was looking for. My mother and I lived in a terraced house in Katrineholm, and it was summer, and I was 15 years old. I hadn't managed to finish 9th grade. I hadn't managed to get to school and face the people there. I felt so odd. Today, you might call what I suffered from social phobia or anxiety, but in the 90s, there were no such terms used. I was simply crazy. My mother dragged her disturbed teenager to the therapist that social services had arranged for us. Social services got involved when I couldn't get to school anymore. Where is Alva's father? The therapist asked. He's not in the picture, Mom replied. That's probably a good thing. I think Alva needs a break from him. That's what you've been trying to tell me, right? I hadn't gotten very far with the therapist, but mostly sat and painted during the conversations we've had since then. Now it was summer break, and Mom asked if I wanted to go and visit Freya in Norway. Freya? The lion Freya that watched us when we were little? Oh, yes, I wanted that. So I ventured out and got on a plane, happy to see Freya again, optimistic to the point that I almost felt like myself. Freya came with her baby Tore to pick me up at the airport, and I realized how big I had become. The last time I had met her, I had been a small child, but I wasn't anymore. I felt a little proud. I looked cautiously at Freya. There was a soft resonance within me. Thank you for letting me come and visit, I said, and handed Freya the presents my mother and I had bought for little Tore. Then followed a week of peace and quiet in Freya's company. I got to help take care of Tore, and the baby's presence was like healing for the soul. I loved holding him and singing to him. He was so whole and true. Freya's husband, Olaf, was happy and kind, but kept to himself. Freya and I made small excursions to the nearest town and to the forest where we picked berries. Otherwise, we went down to the pier and swam. Went water skiing when Olaf was down in the boat. And then we took it easy. I lay in the guest room and read. If you want, you can borrow a swimsuit from me, said Freya, as I was swimming in my denim shorts and a big t-shirt. I didn't want to show my body. I was thin at the time, and I had no shape to speak of, but I felt ugly and wrong. But after a week with Freya, I took off my protective layers, because it didn't matter what my body looked like. I was safe. I ran out into the pier and threw myself into the salty wild sea, with the red facades of the small Norwegian cottages peeking on the rocks. In the living room, we sat on the sofa in the evenings, tired and fulfilled from the day. Sometimes we played cards. The TV was on, and now we lay down to watch a movie. We had put little Tore to bed. I had read him a story, and now he was sleeping peacefully. Freya radiated calm, secure, strong woman in midlife, her feet firmly on the ground. What do you think Elsa would have been like if she had lived? I heard myself say. Oh, I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. What kind of clothes would she have liked? And music? What would she have liked to do? Do you think she would have liked the same as you, maybe? No, she would have been different. Better. Not better, but maybe different. You were two separate people, even though everyone always said just the twins, not Elsa and Alva. Well, I thought about it and seemed to remember how Elsa and I were very aware that we were different individuals and that we were quite unhappy that people thought we were clones. At the same time, it was occasionally a bit funny. It was so sad when she died. I think about her every day, said Freya. You do? I thought. And of you. How you are, how your life is now. What was my life like now? I was here. Yes, I was here, even if Elsa wasn't. I curled up with Freya on the couch. I couldn't stop myself. Needed this. She held me together until I fell asleep. Chapter 13, 14, 15 comments. I experienced memory gaps and shifts as subtle. Perhaps it depends on one's disposition. For others, they might be perceived as more powerful. But for me, memory gaps and leaps in time were something I was used to. That was simply the nature of life as I grew up. Still, I was aware that something was very different with me, and I tried to hide from myself and others, fearing it. But mostly, I was afraid of what was hidden deep inside me, experiences of abuse. I ferociously blocked out these experiences. My confusion was my escape, but not without a cost. The dad gives and takes and holds the power like a god. He places you somewhere, and there you have to try to survive. What dad did was isolate me from everything and everyone, even myself. He was divide and conquer personified, but I never stopped putting the puzzle together. Somewhere everything was preserved, and I knew that. The soul is stronger than any psychopath can be. The wilderness was always there for me. Freya is another cornerstone, so incredibly important to me, enabling me to bear it all, to keep fighting and healing, finding my way back to life and finding my way home. She is a root, a foundation, a cottage. With Freya, I was normal and valuable and allowed to exist, unlike with my mom, who constantly wanted to control me and push my buttons.